have everybody's attention now?
Yes, Phil Brooks. Yes, Mr. Punk. You've got the attention now, or at least our attention and the attention of millions of people around the world. Welcome, everybody, to the Hitting the Turnbuckle show. I am your host, Adam Cousins, and for this CM Punk special, I am joined by our relevant resident problem child, Mr. Dave Robinson. Dave, good evening to you.
Hey, mate, you okay?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I need to give my head a wobble after the SmackDown review, where I said that any fan that was expecting CM Punk to show up at Survivor Series to give your heads a wobble. Well,
Yeah, egg on your face there, mate.
I look like, mate. I look like enough of an egg as it is. I don't need any on my face. First off, first things, obviously it's happened. He returned at the end of Survivor Series, at the end of the men's War Games match. What was your first, when you read it or you watched it, what was the first thing that was going through your mind at that point?
I mean, we discussed it at the back end of the Dynamite review, and I think going off the reactions of a lot of people, I'm least surprised, or I'm less surprised than a lot of people, because even, you know, you kind of really respected outlets, your Meltzers, your Sean Ross Sapps, nobody knew or nobody had confirmed it, but I just had this feeling of it being in Chicago, Punk's comment a couple of months ago, the fact that he went to that Raw, the fact that it just went south with AEW so quickly and dramatically. I don't know if this has been in the works a long time or whether it is, as Triple H said in the presser, that it was kind of came together very quickly. But I just had a feeling, with it being in Chicago, I just had a feeling that something could happen. But I think WWE did it brilliantly. They didn't interfere with the War Games match, which I think that was good. It didn't really overshadow Randy's return too much. It did to a degree, but I think they built the intrigue around Randy and they gave him his separate entrance as well.
Yeah.
And then he played all the hits and, you know, he did the super RKO as well on JD McDonough. So I thought Randy had his moment and had his night. And the credits kind of came on in the corner, the little timestamp logo thing that normally means end of the show, and then to get Cult of Personality hit, and the crowd went mental. It was on a par with the first dance, but I don't know if it was actually more so because it was a surprise. And although the crowd were cheering, particularly through that War Games match, they were chanting for Punk. I don't think a lot of them really expected it to happen. So my initial reaction was, this is wrestling, you know. Yeah, there's always that never say never. There's always that possibility. It wasn't a total shock to me. But I think that's just because the amount of things that have happened in wrestling in the last couple of years, the Cody stuff, the Vince stuff, the AEW stuff, even going back to Danielson, some of the people that have gone to AEW, Jade Cargill going the other way. Maybe this is just a sign of the times, and we should really be expecting people going back and forth. Perhaps AEW strikes next with Mustafa Ali and Ziggler and a few others that were released, but nothing on the level of CM Punk. Obviously, CM Punk, love him, hate him. If you're a fan of his work in the ring, his work on the mic, his story, whatever it is, he does move the needle. He does sell a lot of merch. He does bring a lot of attention, a lot of headlines, a lot of interest to the product. So I'm glad he's back in wrestling. I'm not overly concerned, or I'm not massively upset that he's not in AEW. I just don't think it was the best fit for him. I do think WWE is a much better fit for him. Just like some of the other talents, such as Claudio, for example, or Danielson, or some of the others, I think they're a better fit in AEW. I think Punk, his last run perhaps now in WWE, that time of year as well. We're going into Royal Rumble season, around the corner from WrestleMania 40. There's the stuff with Rollins as well that we'll talk about. I think it's great for wrestling. I really do. And I'm glad CM Punk's back. There is a part of me that thinks, well, Triple H is your problem now. And kind of like, yeah, he's not. I think ultimately, will something happen? Has he learned his lessons? Is he a different person? A lot of questions to be answered, but my initial reaction was happiness. I think I was glad, and I think Parker probably would echo that sentiment as well. I'm glad that CM Punk's back in wrestling.
Yeah, I was kind of obviously I was surprised because I've been saying all week that he's not going to be there. And obviously that I was getting ready to make the biggest mistake and turn the telly off because obviously, as you said, they've done the great work. They've done it a few times when the logos appeared. I think at Bray Wyatt they've done it, and a
Yes.
couple of others. I think Ciampa coming out and doing something to Gargano. I think they split up fire when it happened. So it was always a case of wait until the credits, wait until it's fade to black, so to speak, before you turn it off. My thing is cautious optimism. I think, I'm, like you say, I'm glad that he's back. I think the one thing that maybe, and this isn't being maybe too overcritical or crapping on AEW, I think WWE do things better when it comes to best for business than say personal things.
Yeah.
Like, AEW was sitting on a potential gold mine with the Hangman and the Elite stuff, and for some unknown reason, whether it's maturity, whether it was just so things were so bad, they just couldn't overcome that issue, and ultimately Punk shot himself in the foot at Wembley with the stuff with Jack Perry. But I think the WWE are better off at doing the better business. You don't have to like the people you work with. You don't have to like Johnny in finance or Stacey in accounts, but ultimately, or Phil in wrestling in this sense. But you just have to get what's due was better business. And you've touched on one of the things that we talk about now, Seth Rollins. Now, there was a video coming out, and I'll get on to how the timeline of events from what the dirt sheets say about the Punk return in a minute. From the Seth Rollins thing, obviously, if you've seen the videos, he shouts, fuck you, fuck Pepsi Man, I'm going to get back and knock him the fuck out and stuff like that. And a lot of people are already blowing it out of proportion. The one thing I would say, and if you've watched the video, Michael Cole isn't that strong to be able to hold Seth Rollins back with one arm the way that he did. So if it was a legitimate shoot, Seth could have easily had got past Michael Cole at that point.
Yeah, it's 100% a work. Meltzer said the same. And Seth Rollins is a very, very intelligent guy. And it looks like Punk Rollins will be the first program that Punk works. But there's enough intrigue there and doubt that we don't know. I mean, Rollins called Punk a cancer in wrestling. And that was at a point when Punk was still contracted to AEW. I think it was prior to his return. It was certainly before Wembley. It was after all the stuff at Brawl Out. So that is something that, have they got a great relationship behind the scenes? Who knows? But I don't really want to know, because that makes that match a lot more interesting. I think it was strange in some respects that they didn't. Punk came out, and everyone was still in the ring, or at least the faces were in the ring.
The heels were there as well.
Yeah, well, McIntyre apparently had stormed off.
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. So McIntyre had stormed out of the ring, stormed out before Punk had even got there. Now, a lot of people, once again, are already saying, oh, it's Punk. There is some actual, the dirt sheets have actually said that this has gone beyond what CM Punk has said. So when you were saying about when AEW are going to release another flasher saying so-and-so is all elite, I don't think it's going to be too much longer before the name Drew Galloway appears on that signage. By the sounds of it, I think there's more to. It's more than just CM Punk with McIntyre, is what the dirt sheets are saying anyway.
Yeah, I think so. And it might have even been something with the match, or more than the Punk stuff, because from what I'm led to believe, and from what a lot of people report, there wasn't too many people that knew about Punk coming out. I'm sure Rollins was in that loop of people that did know. I'm sure Orton would as well. I think Orton's been there a long time, and he's got that level of respect that Triple H is going to say to him. And because of the fear of perhaps overshadowing a huge return, Randy himself looked like he was out of wrestling. His own doctors had advised him not to wrestle anymore. He hasn't competed for over 18 months. There was even a rumor that if he were to come back, he couldn't do the RKO anymore, which obviously put that one to bed last night. But that was a story that was doing the rounds. It was something I'd read anyway on a couple of websites. So I'm sure Randy would have been put in the picture about it, but not a lot of people were, from what we understand. But yeah, I'm sure the Seth Rollins stuff is part of the story, part of the first angle for Punk. And if that match is at Rumble or WrestleMania, I think that could be a huge success for the WWE. As I say, mate, I'm really kind of, WWE is in such a good place from a business point of view, interest and everything like that. And to be honest, I mean, I'm a huge AEW guy. You know that. Everybody who watches the show knows that. But I love wrestling, and WWE and AEW are different products for me with a different target audience, different demographics, different MO really. But I think the more people, the more stars that we've got in wrestling, whether they're going to AEW to have these New Japan style matches, or AEW have just announced Will Ospreay.
Yep.
Some of the matches that unlocks for them is phenomenal. But I think there's some really big matches still on the table for Punk and for WWE to take advantage of that. So again, we've been saying it for the majority of 2023. Great time to be a wrestling fan, and this is just another huge story and something for us to get excited about.
It is. So you was mentioning about who knew, who didn't know when all this come out. So from what, again, the dirt sheets understand. This is a big difference. What from reality to now, what is it? Well, could be totally different, but from what the dirt sheets understand, the deal was actually completed earlier that day. The conversations had started roughly 10 days ago. He had an hour-long chat with Triple H, we believe, this week. And it was a purely Triple H and Nick Khan decision. Even the members of TKO, the group behind it, only knew when Punk come out.
Yeah, I did read that, yeah.
And in regards to who knew, who didn't know, the only people that did know were the people within that main event spot. They apparently cleared an area away so that Punk could literally just walk in with a few minutes, walk straight to Gorilla and walk out. That was what apparently they done. So that is how Punk come in to excuse me, to the WWE, or return back to the WWE. Hardly anybody knew, but it does prove your point. What you're saying is they knew.
Yeah. Is it me, or did he look younger as well?
Yeah.
I don't know whether he'd been in WWE's makeup room or whatever, but I don't know whether the fact that he just had, I don't know, a fresh impetus, vigor about him, being back there, being in Chicago. Obviously, he knew the reaction was going to be positive for him from the crowd. That was never in any doubt. But he just looked, I don't know, he just looked younger to me. He just looked refreshed. He looked like he was happy to be there. Similar to when he appeared at the first dance, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think the past few years have kind of took its toll on him and all the controversies, and we don't need to kind of get wrapped up in all of that. It's gone. We've discussed it at great length. It's just curious to me now how, as you say, WWE's structure and the leaders there and the people in place that just want to put on great wrestling shows, do good business, how that all factors in with Phil Brooks. As I said, repeat it, or I said it on this podcast earlier, it just wasn't the right fit for AEW. The personality or the size of the company or the infrastructure, the fact that you've got talent like the Young Bucks that were VPs at the time and apparently not so much anymore.
Yeah.
But it just didn't work. But with Triple H and Nick Khan at the helm, maybe it can work in WWE. I'm sure a lot of fans are hoping that it does. A huge amount of fans got back into wrestling because of CM Punk, whether that was the exploits in Ring of Honor or in WWE. The first summer of Punk, that match with John Cena, the first match they had, I think it was the first match when Punk left with the title. That was like captivating stuff. That was really, really entertaining stuff. Obviously the pipe bomb stuff, all this, I mean, this is within the last 10 years, isn't it? Or pretty much.
Yep.
10 years or so. He left in 2014. There was a lot there for him to still do. There was not just in WWE, there was a lot of stuff in wrestling for him to still do. He's 45, which is young compared to some of the wrestlers that we see in both companies. Sting's getting his last run now. He's got 20 years on CM Punk. Obviously keeps himself in pretty good shape, and his ring work. I know there was the odd match in AEW that got panned, or the odd segment or the odd spot when he botched the lariat, the buckshot, slipped off the top rope. There were moments that kind of opened him up for a bit of criticism, but he had some good matches in AEW, particularly the dog collar match with MJF. Yeah. That was phenomenal. I thought both matches with Joe were pretty good as well. So he's still got a lot to offer WWE. And I think it's a really, really smart move from a business point of view, from Triple H, from Nick Khan, from everyone involved. Lost opportunity or potential for AEW in that respect, but I just, as I say, I can't keep saying it. It just wasn't the right fit for him. You know, they couldn't force it. It was just creating issues and problems. And when you've got co-workers that are refusing to work with him, talk to him, be involved with him in the same room as him, be on the same show as him, when he's got the ability to send the head of talent relations and certain wrestlers home, it just wasn't a sustainable situation. So I think it's best off for both companies how it's played out.
Yeah, very much so. Was very close apparently to joining TNA. They had a big offer put in, but I think as soon as the WWE coming for him, they knew what was going to happen. Apparently, Punk conducts himself very well over there as well. So maybe that door Impact isn't shut fully.
No,
it's a multi-year agreement with the WWE, so we don't know whether obviously if it ends.
I assumed it was going to be a short-term thing, but no, multi-year.
He's apparently due on Raw tomorrow in Nashville. Now, the only other reason why I didn't think he was going to show up was because I assumed he was going to be the name that Nakamura has been going around the last few months with his promos. That's where I thought he was going to be, and because Nakamura's thing wasn't highlighted on Survivor Series, I assumed that he wasn't going to be there. But this does.
Is that a Carter? We spoke about that as well, haven't we? I don't know if the news has gone a bit quieter on that now. I haven't heard anything about it myself.
No, not since I said to you the other day about it. It's gone a bit quiet, but doesn't mean to say, look at this whole Punk thing was done.
Yeah.
Everyone's back. This does throw open, though, an interesting thing for me, which is this affecting Cody Rhodes' finishing the story? Because does Punk want Roman at WrestleMania?
It's a fascinating one again. I mean, there was a rumor doing the rounds that Punk's involvement in AEW was part of the reason Cody left. You know, that could be total rubbish. It was just something. It might have even been on Reddit or something like that. But that was, again, it was out there. I think Cody said in the presser that if he can bring something to the party, then like bring it on type.
Yeah, it was kind of thing.
Sentiment.
Like, yeah, he looks hungry, and if that's the reason, basically, as Cody's a big company man as well, he knows. I mean, and I suppose with AEW, I suppose was he an EVP? He was, right?
Cody was, yeah.
Maybe that side of it, and also trying to be the wrestler as well. Doesn't maybe Cody's better here because he's not.
100%. I think Cody and Jade are better fits for WWE than they were in AEW. And I think Punk, he's going to... I mean, Triple H said that he's back home, which he said that was a bit cliche, but it's kind of true. It's just like Punk has said stuff over the past few years about he left wrestling when he left Ring of Honor, and then he returned to wrestling when he went to AEW. So he's not just said things personally about the likes of Vince and Triple H. He's said some stuff about the WWE, but again, WWE have shown in the past, people like Brett, people like the Warrior. There's a whole list of people that you would think, okay, that's done and dusted, for them to reappear a few years later, and they do very well commercially out of that, and they will with CM Punk.
Yeah,
it's from a business point of view, I think it's magnificent. It's fantastic. You can't even question that, even if it is a short-term thing that goes south in 6 months' time. I think the interest, what they'll gain, the t-shirt sales, I think the YouTube videos, it was up to something like 6 million or something like that.
I think across social media, it's got to 28 million in less
there you go.
4 hours.
I mean, that's a great thing for wrestling as well. And I know you had Bischoff on last week. I caught up with that show in the week, and he's talking about the business of the business. And WWE are a lot more tuned into that. And that's not to say that Tony Khan and AEW don't want to make money. Of course they do. But it's a different product with a different objective, I think. WWE is the machine. That's what it's known as. And this move makes total sense. Whether it plays out or happy families backstage, or whether, because on my last point really on this is we've heard so much about Punk in the last few years. We've discussed him at length, but a lot of the time, I would say 90% of the time, we've kind of we've agreed with him to a point.
Yeah.
Like in fact, what he says and the stuff that he's not happy with, you can look at that objectively and say, yeah, I'd be annoyed with that too, or yeah, he's got a point there. I think it was just how he did it at times. You know, that press release, that presser after All Out, he should have never been in there, not in that frame of mind. That should
they asked Triple H if he was going to do it.
Yeah, did they?
No.
So that's WWE probably wouldn't have put him in that position.
No, they wouldn't.
You know, so yeah, it wasn't what he said. It was just at times how he said it or when he said it, and the implications of that. There's certain things that could have been that never needed to be in the public domain. It never had to be in the media, you know. But it was. So, but in fact, what he was actually frustrated with at times, a lot of people, the majority of people, could see where he was coming from. So he's not the bad guy that he's been portrayed at times. You know, he's an intelligent bloke that knows his stuff. He's been in the industry a long time, made a lot of money. He's got such a fantastic wrestling brain, and you saw that with some of the stories that he was involved in. So I personally think, and my kind of final word on it, that this is a really good thing for wrestling that CM Punk made his return at Survivor Series last night.
It is, and we will see how that unfolds. This was a quick discussion about Punk returning because obviously we done it when he was sat fired, so we had to do one when he come back. So guys, keep a lookout. We're going to be hitting a recall button on Collision very shortly, which you might get that tonight as well. But anyway, guys, he has been the problem child, Dave Robinson. I have been Adam Cousins. Before that, you heard Phil Brooks' voice at the start of the show. And for those of you on YouTube, you heard Phil Brooks' voice. So he was Phil Brooks. And until we come back with Collision very shortly, buckle down and stay safe, everybody.